All right, so now that you've entered your staff members, estimators, and production managers in the custom fields, and at least know about the onboarding custom values, you're ready to assign users in automations. So if you go to this automation right here, you'll see this onboarding folder, and then you'll see this assign users folder. We're going to open that up. There's a couple folders in here, and then assign office. So you'll notice the status says draft for these. That basically means that they're off. There's two ways to turn them on. One is you can click the three dots here and press publish, which will turn it on. You'll see by this green published right here will show up. Another way you can turn it off or on is if you open it up, you're able to edit things, and then you can toggle this to draft. Just make sure you press save to save it so that it's in draft mode. All right, so for assign office, you'll want to make sure it's on and it's assigning to the proper person. So it's pretty easy if you're solo. You're just going to put yourself. So if you click here, it'll open it up, and then you'll click on this rectangle right here. And then for the users, you're going to click here and you're going to assign yourself as the office. So the office really is if you have one person that is going to handle all of the leads that come in and try to set them up for estimates. So the two most common examples would be you're solo, it's just you, assign yourself as the office, or you do have somebody that just does that. So maybe it is an estimator or something of that nature. Now, if you have multiple people do that, you actually don't want to assign it to one person. You actually want to assign it to nobody, or what is called unassigned. So just ask yourself, does one person handle all the leads, or 95% plus of the leads? Then I would assign it to one person. But if it's split, like you have multiple office administrators, or maybe you've got a couple sales reps but they're in charge of setting their own leads and whatnot, then I would make it unassigned. So this will be in here, assigned to office. Now let's say that you want it to be unassigned. Like for my company, we do have two office administrators. They jointly work on the leads and try to set them up for estimates. So for my company, we have all the leads be unassigned. So what you do is you press this plus button here, type remove, and you want to click on this remove assigned user, press save, and then this assigned to office, you want to get rid of this. So click the three dots and press delete. So now that this is all you have, which is remove assigned user, and then go ahead and press save. And that's what you would do if you don't really have one person working on the leads. If you're not really familiar with what I mean by assigned and unassigned, for a contact in the system, you can have somebody be the owner, or you can have nobody be the owner by being unassigned. That's what I mean by that. This will make more sense as time goes on, but if you're working in teams, when an estimate is set, it's good to have the estimator be the owner. When production is going, it's good to have the production manager be the owner. And if it's just you, and right now you're doing everything, it's good to just make you the owner of everything. Because as time goes on, and one day you do hire somebody, it'll be nice to know like who is in charge of what contacts at what time, so you'll kind of have a history and be able to see things. That's why I recommend, even if you are by yourself, I would just label yourself as the office, because as time goes on, that information will be helpful. You want to make sure that the assign office is on, and it's either no assigned users or assigning it to somebody. So I'm going to turn that on. Now for this assign relationship types, it's fine if you never turn these on. They're kind of a convenience thing, but basically if you want all of your subcontractors to be under, say, like a production manager, you would open this up, click here under users, pick your production manager, press save, and then all the subcontractors that get entered into the system, the owner will be the production manager. That way, if a subcontractor were to text, call your main office number or something like that, it'll go to the production manager. Again, you don't have to turn it on, but it's a convenience factor. Same thing with the rest of these. Maybe you want all the vendors to go to the owner, or whatever the case is. You don't have to turn these on, but they're there, and that's what they do. All right, so for estimators and PMs, you do want to adjust these. So if it's just you working by yourself, this solo name estimator and PM, you would open this up. This update estimator, you'd click here, and under the select, pick yourself, press save, and do the same thing with the production manager, and press save. You might be thinking, if it's just me, I don't need to list myself as the estimator and production manager, but trust me, hopefully one day you grow and hire people, and when you do, it'll be nice to know when you look stuff up in the CRM, like, oh, that was when I was the production manager and I handled all that, versus, oh, this new client, that was, so-and-so that was the production manager. So even if you are solo, I definitely recommend doing that. And yep, that's it. Just press publish, press save. Now, let's say that you are working in a team and maybe you have one estimator, maybe you have one production manager, or maybe you've got 6 estimators and 3 PMs. Whatever the case is, if it's not just you, you're going to want to come into here and adjust this appropriately. So let's open this up and see what's going on. So this might look like a lot, but I think once you go through, you'll see it's pretty simple and not too bad. Basically, the first thing is what's called a trigger, and that's what's going to make the automation fire or make the automation run. So I have 2 triggers in here. Basically, one is if the relationship is changed to a lead or if the relationship is changed to a customer. And basically, under the contacts, the first thing is the relationship, and you can label it what it is, but if you label it a lead or a customer, as soon as you press save here, this automation will fire and start working. Now, you can add other triggers if you wanted it to run at different times, which I'm not going to really cover here, but just know that that option's available for you. Another thing that's really nice with these automations is you can manually make them run. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to our contact here. As long as they're published and you have permissions to look at automations, if you scroll down here, you'll see this automation folder, and you can click here to open it up, which will show automations that have ran. And you'll see any that are active right here, as well as this add button. You can press add, and then you can start typing the name. And you can see this team's name, estimator and PM. I could click that and press add, and then this contact will get ran through that automation. And that's just another way that you could run an automation rather than a trigger, which again, don't worry if this seems a little overwhelming. It'll all start to make more sense as time goes on. But let's look at what happens. When we label a contact as a lead, it's basically going to follow these lines, right? So it's going to come down to this splitter, or it's called the if-else function, but you can think of it like paths. And you can see it's asking, is the estimator field on the contact filled out? So what that is right here, this estimator, is this blank or is it filled out? So if no, if the estimator is blank, which you'll see in here, it says estimator is empty, that's no, then it's going to go do this. But if it is filled out, then it's going to come down this path, which you'll see it comes to here, then it follows down to here and goes to this one. But if it's empty, it's going to come into this zip code separator. So let's open this up and see what's going on. So you can see this is called branches, and each one of these boxes is a pathway, right? So you can see there's 4 in here, and those correlate to this right here. So this is 1, 2, this is 3 right here, and this is 4 right here. So you'll notice 3 and 4 don't do anything, they just end, where 1 and 2 do something. So let's look at what's going on. So this right here was those custom values we entered. So in the folder onboarding, the custom value labeled territory north. So let's look at what that looked like again. So in the folder onboarding, territory north, I could put in a bunch of zip codes here like this. And then we're saying contains. So if this custom value contains what the actual zip code is for the contact, so this contact has this zip code, if this zip code is in my list of zip codes here, then it's going to go down this path. And then this step is saying label who the estimator is. So we would select who we want to be our estimator. So let me show you an example of how this works, right? So I'm going to go to my territory north right here. I'm going to say edit, and I'm going to put in a couple zip codes. I'm going to do 80501, 80528. All right, so I've got 2 zip codes in there. I'm going to press update. And notice that 80501 is one of the zip codes, and that's the zip code that this contact, this fake 3 has. And notice how the estimator is blank here. So what I'm going to do in the automation is say, okay, if in my custom value here, if the contact's postal code is in there, go down this path, and this path is going to say make the estimator enter names as just, it could be any name, that could be John Smith. So I'm going to press save. I'm going to have this be published, right? And now I'm going to come back to this guy right here. I'm going to change the relationship to lead and press save, which is going to make that automation run. And what we should see is this estimator should get filled out with enter names. So let's go ahead and refresh this and see if it worked. So you can see now enter names is there. So it's nice if you've got multiple estimators and they're separated by territory and zip codes. The system can automatically ID and label who the estimator is based on the zip code. Now, if you wanted to use a different field, right, like maybe you wanted to use city, you could do that as well. You would just put cities in here, and then in your automation here, this right here, so I'm going to delete this. You can click here and you'll have a bunch of stuff, but we're going to say this is the contact. So we want to look at the contact fields, which is all of these. So I'm going to say contact, and then you can see all the fields are here. So what I had selected was postal code, but instead I could select city. And now that's how you'd make the city work, or whatever other situation is best for your company. So let's just run through this real quick and then I'll explain what you want to do, right? So it's going to come to here. This is going to say, is there an estimator already on the contact? If there is, go down this path, which basically skip all this stuff. If there's not, look up the zip code. Based on what the zip code is, label the estimator appropriately. Maybe if it's an out of service territory, maybe we want to do an automation here, like have the system send a email to the contact saying, sorry, but you're out of our service area. But for right now, it just says end, so it won't do anything. But you'll see after it names the estimator, it goes to this one. And it does the same thing for a production manager, right? So it's going to say, hey, is there a production manager in that contact? If there is, don't do anything. If there's not, look at what zip code they're in and then enter the appropriate production manager. And again, maybe you don't want to use zip codes. Maybe you want to do it based on type of work. Maybe you have one production manager that does all of your commercial or your exterior and another one that does interior, or whatever the case is. You can separate them out. All right, so now that you kind of understand how that goes, what you're really wanting to do is put in your estimators, right? So if you've got 2 estimators, it's easy, but let's say you have got 5 different estimators. You'd come to the zip code separator, and the easiest way to add another one is just click right here, go duplicate branch, and now you've got, your 3rd estimator. And I would label this, estimator's name, or, whatever territory, Midwest territory, however you guys think about it in your head that it makes sense. And then you would want to have a different set of postal codes for that estimator, in which case you can come to your custom values and you can just say add new custom value, label it whatever makes sense, Midwest or whatever it is, and then just enter the zip codes for that person. Then here, select that new custom value you added. So you could have 1 estimator, you could have 100. It's the same thing, just repeated. And then this is just saying, hey, all the ones that are in this territory, label this estimator. All the ones that are in this territory, label that estimator. And if you have more, you can just click right here, press copy, copy action, add it to the next one. I would come into here, pick a new estimator, and you can even change the title to put, their name or territory or whatever. And then again, do the same thing for the production manager. And then you could modify this to your company's needs. So let's say that you only have 1 production manager. You don't need to separate different production managers based on zip codes. So what we can do is, I'm just going to take this guy and put him right here. So you can click these 3 dots. You could do copy, but I'm going to select move, which is basically like cut and paste instead of copy paste. Say move, I'm going to click right here. And then I don't need this separating stuff or this extra production manager field. So I'm just going to click these 3 dots and press delete. And now you can see it first separates by estimator, and then both roads lead to here, which just labels the production manager. It's going to check real quick to see if the production manager field is blank or not, because if it's already filled out, you don't have to do it again. But if the production manager field is empty, it'll come right here and it'll label my production manager for every job. All right, so that's what you'll do if you're working in teams and you want to designate different estimators and production managers based on something like a zip code. All right, so now who is this estimator? You'll notice that this is the only one that's on, and you want to make sure it's on and leave it on. If it's just you, it's super easy. You'll just want to make sure that that first one, example 1, is you. Right here, it should list your name. If you changed enter names to your name, it should just default to there, so you shouldn't have to do anything. But then you are right here going to want to click here and it'll be blank, and you'll want to pick yourself. Press save and that's it. So if you're solo, that's all you got to do and you're good. But then if you are working in teams, after you enter your estimators, they'll show up here. So what you'll do is you'll click here and then your estimators will be here. So it'll be like estimator 1, estimator 2, estimator 3. If you need to add more, just go duplicate and then pick the next one, And then I like to label these. See how this is example 1, 2, and 3. So I would say this is this name. This one is Jill Fake. This one is Shane Walter. This one is enter names. So then when you press save, it just makes it easy to visually see it. And then down here, we're just going to assign it to what it says. So we'll go here, assign this one to this one, save, assign this one to this one, save, assign this one to this one, save. And that's all you're doing here is just picking your estimators and saying assign it to that same person. And again, you could have one estimator, you could have 100. It's just the same thing repeated. All right, in this one here, you'll notice it says optional. The calendars can do this as well. So you don't have to do this. And before you were to mess with or turn this on, make sure that you've got your sales calendar set up and that you've watched those videos and are done with that part of the onboarding process. And to keep things simple, I would say if you're solo, you don't have to worry about this, leave it off. If the person who's setting the estimate is the same person that's doing the estimate, so if you have your estimators or sales reps setting and doing their own estimates, I would leave this off and just do it in the calendar setting. And the way that this is on in the calendar setting is if we go to calendars, settings, open up one of these sales calendars, under notifications and additional options, there's this right here, assign contacts to their respective calendar team members each time an appointment is booked. What this is saying is, hey, if I put this in Susie's estimate calendar, assign that contact to Susie right when I schedule an appointment in their calendar. But if the person who's setting the estimate most of the time is not the same person that's doing the estimate, I would actually turn that off in the calendar settings and do it here. And the way that you do that is you're going to focus on this, this, and this. So it's set up for 2 if you needed to add a third one. So you would have 3 estimators, they'd each have their own calendar. You would want to add another trigger that's the same as these, where it's saying when an appointment gets confirmed in this calendar, that would be listed here. So we've got example calendar 1, example calendar 2, and then here you could just duplicate this, but workflow trigger is, and then what'll be here is your triggers. So they'll be listed out here. So example 1, example 2, and then you'd assign to example 1, assign to example 2, and etc. 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. So all this is saying is any contacts we set up in this person's calendar, say like John's calendar, assign that contact to John. But there's going to be a 1-minute delay before it assigns it to John, which will be helpful for some other automations that fire and stuff. Again, to keep it simple, if it's you alone, don't turn this on. If whoever sets the estimate does the estimate, don't turn this on. But if the setter and the estimator are 2 different people, everything will still work. It's fine if you don't, but I would recommend turning that option off in the calendar, setting this up and publishing and turning this on. Okay, and that's everything with assigning users.